Every one of those individuals out there today, if you go look at it, in any one of those divisions, they're all respectable returns. They're not to be diminished. I'm not trying to say that they're not good returns. They're great returns. If you're making 100% return on your money in a year, and granted, there are a lot of you that are my students. There's a lot of you that don't even trade the way I trade. And you can do better than 100% return in a year. You'll be able to do that in another brokerage account. I've shown profitability in taking trades with AMP Global Futures. That's a real regulated broker in the United States. I traded with Thinkorswim. I literally have it on this YouTube channel, and you can see me log into the account, and I doubled the account in like 5 weeks using one contract. So that's not even trying. That was me answering a lot of questions from students. What would you do if you got drawdown here, and how would you fix this? I literally put the account in drawdown and showed me coming out of it too. I went into 30% drawdown in one day and came right back out of it in the same day. So if you just traded with one contract, okay, just one contract, I made 100% plus percent in 5 weeks trading with Thinkorswim, doing one contract trading on NASDAQ. Go look at it. It's on there. Real money. And I set that up as a realistic expectation for you. I think that that's realistic. I mean, look at my entries, the strategies I use for entering a trade. Like, I'm literally buying lows. I'm buying the middle of fair value gaps. That's the low points. How can anybody argue against it? There was a comment that was left by a guy. He said, "Oh, come on, man. Let's make it believable. Like, you're every day being perfect with this." Thank you. Thank you for the compliment. I mean, apparently you didn't notice me getting stopped out a few times, but I take that as a compliment, but that's not what he meant it as. I don't look at that and think, oh, he thinks I'm a fraud. He might think that. I see him seeing my results and my executions that are absolutely real. Saying it's too good to be true. That is the greatest compliment anybody could give to a trader. If your results look too good to be true, and yet you keep proving it, that's delicious. But for some of you that are very, very impressionable, you let the impressions of other people make a huge alteration to the course of action that you're trying to start with in this industry, when 90% of this war in trading is in your head. It's a psychological battle. You're battling with yourself, and then once you get in the marketplace, then you're arm wrestling the market. And that's hard. It's real. When you make it your business, that this is your career, you are learning how to operate and run a business. What is it? You incorporated. Because trading opens up so many more opportunities than just getting funded, getting paid out, getting in an account with real money in it, and taking withdrawals from it. If that's all you see in trading, wow, what a myopic view. You have so many ways to turn this into an enterprise. Who's in a seat of control here? I am. When you're comfortable with what you have and you don't need any more, that's a feeling none of you can understand. I don't ever need to trade. I don't ever need to make any more money doing anything. I'm completely comfortable. My family is set. That's what you want to be able to do for your family. You want to be able to lock it down, set it up where it's residual wealth, legacy wealth. Unless you put your feet to the ground and say, I'm digging my heels in. I know it's going to be hard. I know I'm going to have pushback. I know it's going to be requiring me to put time into it. When all my friends are out there running around and clubbing and doing this and chasing tail and doing this and doing that and drinking and having fun on the weekends, no, I'm going to be in these charts studying. I'm going to be living my life differently. But they're still going to be out there trying to chase tail, broke driving a beat car, and ain't doing shit in their life. And you'll be able to pull down annual salaries on a week. You can't even imagine where you're going to be. You can't even imagine it. Whatever you think Whatever you think is your level of success, it's not big enough. It's not big enough. You have no idea when you strip all these limitations that you put on yourself. You shackle yourself with your own mindset. You do it. This is all I can see myself doing right now. When you start making $100,000 a year, you start thinking to yourself, well, shit, that wasn't all that hard. I thought it was really hard. Well, now I'm going to aim for $500,000. And the attempts that you do to do that, you get there in less than half the time. And you start thinking, well, shit, they say the first $1 million is the hardest one. I'm about there. Boom, in a couple more months, and then you're there. And you look back and say, $1 million isn't all that much money. And yeah, it took some effort, but it didn't take as much effort as I thought it was going to take. And then you start making 5 million, 10 million, 15 million, 50 million. And I know I'm talking in numbers none comprehend, but it is what it is, folks. It's just math. It's just math. You're compounding the efforts of what you're able to do on the smallest form. In that little cookie cutter mold that I'm going to find 5 handles in the S&P to begin with. And I'm going to let it grow till I can start doing 8 and then 10, or start with 20 in the NASDAQ and work towards 30 and 40 to 50. You only got to do them a few times a week, folks. And as your equity increases, you can afford to do more contracts. That compounds, and you keep adding it more and more and more. But the level of risk is always the same. Whatever you associate in terms of your risk, I'm not going to risk more than 1%. But I can't get rich trading with 1%. You can get rich trading with 1/4 of 1%. You have to submit the time. None of you want to do that part. That's the part you have to submit to. That's the first thing I submitted to when I first started trading. I had a 20-year plan. Imagine me writing a book. How to be successful and retire 20 years as a trader. Nobody's buying that book. Now, in the 80s and the 90s, that would have been a great title because everything was around what? For you younger folks, you ain't going to know this, but it was all mutual fund. It was when mutual funds and fidelity. Everybody was trying to get people to invest in these mutual funds. And they were projecting, this is what you should do. Average is 12% return on stocks over the course of the years. You put this much money in, your money can compound. You'll have $1 million by the time you're whatever. So I was like, well, shit. If I can make 12% in a mutual fund a year, what happens if I start making 12% a month? And then what happens when I start making 12% every 2 weeks? And then what happens if I make 12% a week? And then what happens if I can compound my efforts and find trades that yield 12% in the same day? Suddenly, all these big numbers that were fearful for me as even contemplating as realistic ever to reach for, they became reachable. Because I'm not increasing the level of effort in my trades. All I need is the setup. And as the equity increases in the baseline is whatever it is at the time, it's $100,000, $250,000, $500,000, $1 million account. Whatever that is, the risk percentage is never increasing. So whatever you've adopted as your model is, this is what I'm going to risk. It's going to be 1% or less. It's going to be 0.5%. It's going to be 1/4%. You're trying to tell me you're not satisfied risking 1/4 of 1% of $1 million if you have that in your trading. Okay, it's real money, not fun. It's real money, and you're able to take down a setup that yields 5 to 8 to 10 times what you're risking. Really? You don't think that that's a good living? 50 grand a week? That is a living experience that I want all of you to have. I want you to all look at things and say, you know what? I don't fear what things cost. I don't fear inflation because you'll always outpace it. When you're a student that goes through college and you have a college education, inflation's still a factor to you. Well, you don't understand. House prices are too high. I know. I paid over $2 million for this house. I paid too much money. Every house is inflated right now. You're not going to have a house because it's too expensive. You got to have a place to live, right? I don't, because I know all the things I'm doing elsewhere are offsetting whatever I spent on this. See, I can't come out here and promise you getting rich. I can't. I won't. But for the people that are astute, they can see, they can read between the lines. Okay, he's not promising that I'm going to get rich. He's just promising that I'm going to be able to tell where this market's going to go before it does it. More times than not. Okay. So now what happens when I monetize that transaction? You are learning the highest form of analysis that you'll ever see. And I'm going to say this, and yes, it is arrogant. They are going to write books about me. The things that you're learning, you're here. And they're going to learn about the group that you're a part of right now. They're going to read about that, and they're going to say, I wish I would have been under that guy. Long gone, I'm going to be out of the world by then. And they'll be writing books. And they'll be referring to you indirectly. I think that's kind of neat.